Hey everyone, this is Cardfight Community here with another deck profile for you. This is the Gear Chronicle deck. I have made this using cards just from the Generation Stride booster set, as well as the new Gear Chronicle trial deck, and a couple of the promos that came with the Generation Stride booster. Yeah, which is really all the cards that are available to this point. Yeah, without further ado, let's kind of get into this deck build. For the starting Vanguard, I run Gunner Gear Draco Kid. It's a pretty decent starting Vanguard. It's got the Forerunner ability, of course, but it's also got the Generation Break 1 ability, where you can counterblast this card, put it into your soul, and search your deck for up to one Grade 3 card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So useful for if you need maybe another thing to attack with. You can counterblast one, add it to the soul, go get your Grade 3, call it to attack with, or set yourself up for striding again next turn by adding that Grade 3 to your hand. Or even if you just want an extra card in your hand for shield. I know that a Grade 3 doesn't have any shield value, but you can always use it to ditch it to use it for a perfect guard bait. So yeah, that's the starting Vanguard. Into the trigger lineup, I run 4 of Lucky Pot Draco Kid. It's a draw trigger, a Margle clone, if you will. You have the ability to put this card into the soul to add plus 3,000 power to any of your, any of your units. So it can really help you get better numbers in some of your rows. Next, we run 4 of the critical trigger Steam Battler Dadasig. I guess that's how you say it. Yeah, it's a critical trigger though. 4 Steam Battler Meshta, critical trigger. And 4 of the heal triggers Steam Maiden Iluru. So those are the triggers. On to the grade 1s. We run 4 Steam Maiden Arlem. This is the perfect guard. Can only be used to guard for your Vanguard. You can't guard rear guards with it. And it's got the extra ability that if there is a copy of it in your drop zone, when you use it, you can unflip one of your damage. So it's a nice little added ability. Then we run 2 of the 10k attackers. When this thing attacks a Vanguard, if you're at Generation Break 1, he gets plus 3,000 power. Next, 4 of Summit Crest Gearwolf. This card's pretty good if you combine it with a couple of other abilities in this deck. He has Generation Break 1, and its ability is whenever your opponent's rear guard is put into their deck due to an effect of one of your other cards, you can pay the cost. It doesn't look like there is a cost, so I think it's just whenever you're at Generation Break 1. I don't see any cost on it. That's an interesting. I don't know why they'd put that in the wording. But yeah, he gets an extra plus 3,000 power until the end of the turn. Essentially, if you send one card back to the deck, he'll be a 10k attacker or a 10k booster, whatever you want. So it's really nice. You can combo it with some of the cards in the deck to get really good rows for attacking with. And then we run 4 Steam Breath Dragon. This is the card that when you call it, you can reveal a Grade 3 and search your deck for a card with Chronojet in its name. Add it to your hand, then discard any card from your hand. And he's also good for, you can discard him to pay the cost for Stride, so he can count as a Grade 3 when you want to pay the Stride cost. So, pretty good. Grade 2s. We run 3 Mechanized Gear Tiger. It's got the ability that when he attacks, if you have a G unit on your Vanguard circle, you can Soul Blast one and he gets an extra 5,000 power. So, he'll be at 14,000 after you Soul Blast one if you have a G unit on the Vanguard circle, and then if you have a 7k boost, then he'll be at 21. So that's a pretty good row for hitting at your opponent's Vanguard. I think there's definitely better cards to run other than this guy, but I'm just kind of putting him in here just for the sake of it being competitive with some of the other decks that I'm making. So he's not a bad card, but I'll show some other cards that I would recommend at the end of this video. Next I run 4 Twin Mazer Dragon. It's the 12k attacker. When it attacks the Vanguard, if you have Generation Break 1, he gets the plus 3000 attack power, so he'll be at 12k. And the last grade 2, we run 4 Steam Fighter Amber. It's got Generation Break 1. You can counterblast 1 when it attacks a Vanguard. If it's boosted, you can pay the cost to counterblast 1. And then if you do, you can choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rear guards and send it to the bottom of your opponent's deck. So, this card can be comboed with the Crest Gear Wolf, Summit Crest Gear Wolf, and really be able to get some good rows and help you out a lot, since the focus of this deck really is to return your opponent's cards to their deck. For grade 3s, I run 4 Steam Maiden Elul. It's got an ability, Generation Break 1. During your turn, this unit gets plus 3000 power for each face-up card in your generation zone. So, if you've strode 3-4 times, you've got like 3 or 4 face-up. Say you have 4 face-up, this would get an extra 12,000 power. If you have 3 face-up, it gets an extra 9,000 power. So, And it's also got the ability that when it's placed on the Vanguard circle, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, you can call up to 1 card from your hand, and then choose one of your units and get plus 5,000 power. So, nice little additional ability. Not a bad card. Again, I think there are better things that you can run. And for the other grade 3, this is the guy that you would really want to ride into. It's Chronojet Dragon. He's got Generation Break 2, which means when he attacks the Vanguard until the end of the battle, he gets an extra 5,000 power, and your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater units to guard. So this is a pretty intimidating ability late game. He'd be at 16,000 power by himself when he attacks if you have a booster behind it. He'll be even higher than that, and your opponent won't be able to perfect guard this because they can't call grade 1 or greater units. They're stuck with just using their grade 0s to guard with, or any intercepts that they have. So this can be a really big problem for your opponent late game if you can get this ability off. Onto the G units. I run 2 Interdimensional Dragon, Lost Age Dragon. This is the promo that you get with the Generation Stride booster box. It's got an ability, when its attack hits the Vanguard, you can choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and your opponent has to put that to the bottom of their deck. So it's not bad. It's good for applying pressure to your opponent. I would use this early game, when you are trying to apply pressure to your opponent. Next, I run 4 Interdimensional Dragon, Ragnarok Dragon. This is one of the flip abilities for the G units. It's got an ability where you can counterblast 1 and choose a face-down card named Interdimensional Dragon, Ragnarok Dragon, so himself. And then when he attacks, you can flip it face up and also counterblast 1. And then if you do, until the end of that battle, your opponent can't call grade 0 cards from their hand to guard with. And if the number of face-up cards in your generation zone is 2 or more, then it also gets an extra critical. So, your opponent would really want to be perfect guarding this. They can't guard with grade 0s, which, typically you'd have to drop quite a few grade 0s from your hand to guard against this, especially if it's got a boost anyways. So your opponent would really want to just perfect guard this if they could, especially when they're facing that extra crit. It's very intimidating. And the last, I run 2 Interdimensional Dragon, Chronos Command Dragon. This is a pretty decent card. This is the Generation Rare that comes from the Generation Stride set. It's got an ability where you can counterblast 2, Soul Blast 1, and choose a card from your hand and discard it. If this unit attack hits your opponent's Vanguard, then if you pay that cost, your opponent puts all of their rear guards to the bottom of their deck. All of them. As in, if your opponent has a full field of 5 rear guards and this thing hits, and you pay that cost, they're gone. They all go to the bottom of your opponent's deck. You don't have to worry about them anymore. So if you can really make some opponents pay if they try to rush you early game, and they call everything that they can out to the field, get a full field, and now they don't really have anything in their hand to guard with, especially if they don't have a perfect guard or something, this thing is going to make them pay. So I would really only ride this or stride into this if your opponent has probably at least 3 rear guards, because you're not really going to get the full effect if your opponent only has like 1 or 2 rear guards that you return and you have to pay this big cost to do it. Instead, I would just ride this guy, the Lost Age Dragon, because when he hits, you don't have to pay any kind of cost. It's free, and you can just return one of them to the deck, so not a big deal. This would be a better choice when your opponent doesn't have many. But yeah, this guy is really able to make your opponent pay for rushing early game. And like I said, I'm going to mention some other cards from the set that you can maybe run. There's a Timepiece Draco Kid. It's another starting Vanguard that you could run. It's just got the ability that you can counterblast 1, add it to your soul, look at the top 5 for a grade 3, and add it to your hand. So, if you like this kind of ability, sometimes it's pretty nice to be able to go ahead and use it. It doesn't have Generation Break 1, so you can just go ahead and use it before you have to be at grade 3 anyways, so it can help you not get grade stuck. But there is a chance that it'll miss and you'll -1 yourself. You'll lose this card, but that's what I don't really like about it. You could also run this card, Steam Scara GG. It's a pretty decent card. I wouldn't mind running maybe 1 or 2 of these. It's you call it Soul Blast 2 and you can draw a card. I don't really like 5k boost. Especially, I really don't like maybe drawing into this and having to ride it early game, so that's one of the reasons why I don't really play it, but it's not bad to maybe run 1 or 2 of, because it'll pay for itself, as long as you don't use a lot of soul blasting in the deck anyways. There's this card, the Steam Rider Disc Call. I actually like this better than the 10k attackers for the grade 1s. With Generation Break 1, because think about it, you can't use that extra 3000 power when it attacks a Vanguard until your opponent's at grade 3 at least, because you have to have been able to stride at least once. So your opponent's most likely going to have an 11k Vanguard, so it's really just going to be a 7k attacker until you get to the late game. This is going to be a 9k attacker early game. It doesn't have to do anything except attack the Vanguard. So this is nice. It's still a 7k booster. I like it better. I think it's better early game, and even late game it'll still be a 9k, so you can put a 7k booster behind it and it still makes a 16k row, so pretty good. This is a grade 2 that I think I would run over the mechanized Gear Tiger that I showed earlier. I think this is a little bit better than him. He's kind of like a Silent Tong, except he's 9,000 power. He's got the ability that when he attacks a Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 2, and if you do, your opponent can't guard with grade 0 cards. So he's pretty good. He's also a Legion card. He's got a grade 3 guy that he goes with, and he's pretty good as well. I'll show that to you in a minute. You could also play Relic Master Dragon if you like. I'm not a big fan of this. I think it's a little too counterblast heavy, but it's got the ability that when it's placed on the Vanguard or rear guard circle, you can counterblast 2, choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rear guards, put it on the bottom of their deck. So, it's an okay card. I don't like how heavy the counterblast cost is. This deck really already uses too much counterblast as it is. This is the this is the Legion that goes with that goes with him. He's a pretty decent card. He's not like great or anything, but yeah, it's got the ability that when you Legion, you can choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rear guards. Oh, excuse me. And your opponent puts that on the bottom of his or her deck. And then also when it's in Legion, it's got the 2,000 power or 20,000 power, and when it attacks a Vanguard, it gets an extra +2. So it'll be at 22,000 when it attacks a Vanguard. So pretty decent ability. I really like Legion, so it's nice to be able to shuffle triggers and things that you need back into your deck. So I think it's a little bit better of an option. And even this, I think, might be a little bit better option than the other grade 3. A little bit better than the Steam Maiden Illul, because it's got a Generation Break. It's called Fate Wheel Dragon, by the way. It's called Generation Break 1. It's got ability Counterblast 1 when it attacks a Vanguard. You can pay the cost. If you do, until the end of the battle, your opponent can't guard with grade 0 cards. So that's pretty good. And it's also got an extra ability that when it's placed on the Vanguard circle, you can Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and if you do, you can choose one of your opponent's grade 1 or less rear guards and put it on the bottom of your opponent's deck. So that's not a bad ability either. Really, it just really depends on what your preference is, what it is that you're trying to do in the deck for which grade 3 you want to run. You know, in whatever it is that you want to run, but these are some extra cards that I was considering putting into the deck, but I didn't put them in there just for the sake of kind of making them more balanced with some of the other decks that I'm making from cards from the new generation Stride set. So yeah, let me know what you think of this deck. If there's anything that you'd want to improve, put it in the comments below, or if you have any questions about why I did something, or you know, how something would work. But yeah, this is the deck, and you can find on our channel, on the Cardfight channel, Cardfight community channel, you can find videos of this deck being used in action against some other decks that I've made, and really see how some of these cards are supposed to work. So yeah, please rate, comment, subscribe, hit that like button, and yeah, let me know what you think. So that concludes this deck profile, and there will be more to come. Thanks, guys.